Hello, hello. Here we are. We're talking today about how tired we are in Q4. At least I am. I'm exhausted. I don't know if you guys are exhausted. I imagine you are. I'm just really, really exhausted, and I haven't even been doing probably half as much as what everyone else has been doing out there. But we're talking about VAs and how there's a point in your business where you're trying to grow and you're going to have to hire help. You're going to have to do something. For myself, I've been doing this for a long time, solo, working everything in my business absolutely by myself. And it's to the point where it'd be nice to take some of that off my plate to where it's not up to me all the time and get a little help. So today we have joining us Ian Bauer. He's going to tell us about how to hire a VA, give us a lot of tips and pointers. He's got an awesome course out that I'm taking right now as I'm trying to hire a VA myself because I'm desperate. I'm really desperate like everyone else is out there. So Ian, tell us about yourself first, a little bit about what you do and what you do with Amazon or FBA or e-commerce in general. Start there first, then we can talk about hiring VAs.
Sure. So hello, everybody. My business is mostly wholesale FBA right now. About 10 to 15% of it is print on demand. So we're doing merch by Amazon. We've launched an Etsy store this year, and we're looking at Redbubble, very little bit of Shopify. That's kind of on the back burner for the moment. But until very recently, until October 1st of this year, I was also working a full-time job. So, and when I say full-time job, I mean like 65, 70 hour a week kind of job. So I was the executive chef of a, local private university. So that pulled me away quite a bit from my business. So actually this concept of hiring a virtual assistant was born out of necessity last year in 2016. Basically, my business was going under because I was working all the time as a chef and I didn't have any time to work on the business, so if I had 5 hours, I was literally working 5 hours a week on my business. And so that was the only reason it was kind of surviving. And, a few kind of unfortunate events happened at the end of Q4 for those of you that, all of you listening must be in the e-commerce world. So if you're an FBA or even print on demand, that Q4 is like when the magic happens. Some businesses make more in Q4 than they make the rest of the year. And I was actually doing less in the months of November and December than I had done in previous months because I call it watering your money garden, right? You have a money garden, and if you're there watering it, it's going to grow. Well, if you get distracted and you're not watering it, it's going to die. So what you need somebody to help you water the money garden. And so it was at the end of Q4 last year where it was like I sold through all of my FBA inventory. I scraped together the last few bucks that I had, and I was considering buying another course, learning another, way to make money on the internet, right? Not like I've already spent thousands and thousands of dollars learning how to make money on the internet. And what I did instead was I focused on an execution strategy, a strategy for doing instead of a strategy for learning or a strategy for knowing and that was to hire a virtual assistant. So that's kind of my backstory and how I kind of screwed up the courage to hire a virtual assistant, because it does take courage if you're like me, especially where I'm very, very risk adverse. I don't like taking any risks in my business whatsoever. It's funny, every time I think that I've taken a risk, I like pat myself on the back. Oh, good job, Ian, you taking a risk. I look in hindsight, I realized that it was actually not risky. I had done everything possible to make it a nice, safe bet, So it's the same thing with a virtual assistant. How do you make it a safe bet? How do you see the return on investment? How do you calculate the return on investment for a virtual assistant? So once I started doing that math and putting those numbers together, what I needed to do then was leverage the 15 years of experience I have in professional kitchens, hiring, firing, training, coaching, developing training materials for hundreds and hundreds of employees. So how was I going to bring that to bear to the virtual assistants and use that to leverage myself and be successful? So that's kind of the story of how I hired my first virtual assistant. And now I have 8, I think, doing all sorts of things, growing my business. I actually, maybe later I could share a couple screenshots of my sales in September of 2016, my sales in February of 2016, 60 days after I hired my first virtual assistant, and then my sales for this past 30 days. It's a 5 times in February, and then it's I came to the math 25 times for December. So it's been astronomical. It's been really awesome.
That's awesome. And it probably would not have happened if you didn't hire help.
You
get to a point where there's just no way that you can do it by yourself.
Yeah. I mean, and I used to say when people ask, because one of the questions that a lot of people ask is how do I know if my business is big enough? How do I know if I'm ready? How much is it going to cost? And I used to say, all right, well, you want to be making like $300 a month in profit. And now I don't. I say start right away. You don't have to wait to hire a virtual assistant, especially if this is your side hustle. If you want this to grow on your own, and you've got something else you're doing, if you're going to a full-time job, then basically you're hiring somebody else to stand there with a watering can over your money garden, and they're going to do it better than you eventually. As a chef, I used to have prep cooks, right? And I'm an executive chef, an ACF certified executive chef, top of my game, like I am the leader, the all-time commander, right? But my prep cooks are better and faster at peeling carrots and chopping things and making the same sauce that they make every single day. I don't make that sauce every single day, but they do. They do it for 40 hours a week. If I got into a carrot peeling competition with one of my prep cooks, I'd lose, and that's where you want to get your virtual assistants.
Yeah, they do it faster and they do it better. And that's the thing that we have is sometimes we have so much pride to where we just think, oh, it can't possibly be that anyone else could do something better than what I can do. And you find out that they can do it far better than you and faster. And then you think, yeah, that's probably true because I haven't been practicing it as much. And why am I not hiring them to do it for me and help me?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just, I agree with that. That is the way to start working smarter instead of working harder. And that's been my philosophy for a long time of how do I do that? Unfortunately, I haven't been even taking my own piece of advice here for a long time where I need to bite the bullet and start hiring, VAs and build out a team. It's to that point where it's just crucial. It's just crucial where you have to do it. Otherwise, you're going to burn out big time. You're going to burn out, your business is going to burn out, everything's going to kind of fall apart. And that's not exactly what you want. You started this for a reason and you want to build a lifestyle for yourself to where you do have the time to go and do things that you enjoy. And so that's the part where I'm at of, okay, when can I have a life again? And so the only way to do that is I'm going to have to hire some help so that I can get back to being able to do things that you enjoy and love doing and spending time with people that you want to spend time with, and without this fear in the back of your mind of how am I going to be able to do this, but yet not feel guilty that I'm not working on the business because that's going to fall apart and I'm not going to be able to pay the bills next month. And you kind of get into this wavering back and forth, and it's not good. It's a very difficult dichotomy in your head of what's going on, bantering back and forth with yourself on what to do. So there's a couple things that I was able to relate to immediately in your course. And one of them was fear. There are, a couple of reasons for why we don't take the plunge and hire help. And one of them is fear. And the other one is, and I think it's still fear related. Am I going to be able to afford to hire a VA? Okay. Will I be able to afford the cost of it? And I'm going to tell you, those are the two things that I've been dealing with, is the fear, And can I afford this? Am I going to be able to afford this? Is this taking out too much in the budget? Should I really be doing this, or should I just, just try harder? Just work harder, just do more, just don't sleep. That's the life of an entrepreneur, right? What do I do? What do I handle? So I don't know if you have some advice there that you want to give to everyone.
Well, yeah, first of all, I'm a big fan of this idea that if you have a business where you don't have any employees, then what you really have is a job. And maybe, some people feel that way sometimes, that what they have is a job, not necessarily a business. Mm-hmm. And that I think stems from, there are certain aspects of our business that we love to do, and there are certain aspects of our business that we detest doing and we push off every day. Like I've got one or two things on my to-do list that every day I just hit tomorrow, postpone till tomorrow, So, these are the kinds of things that you can outsource. So addressing the fear part of it, to me, it seems like most of my students, when they find the course, tend to be afraid, first of all, of maybe they've never hired someone before. Just because you're you're a business owner doesn't necessarily mean you may have any hiring experience in your background. So the course helps mitigate a lot of that by giving some scripts, literally just templates you can swipe, copy, and send, interview questions that you should ask, literal like word for word scripts for when you're doing a live video interview, similar to what we're doing now, just exactly what you're supposed to do, what you should expect. And I think that encompasses a lot of it, and then there's also, to me, a little bit of like the most of the time, and what I 100% recommend is hiring virtual assistants from the Philippines. It's the most beneficial for everybody, including the virtual assistants, because what we can pay them is not awful for us as business owners, but it's really good for them. The minimum wage there is, I think, $1.30 an hour or something like that. So you would be looking to pay a virtual assistant between $1.50 and probably $5 an hour, depending on what they're doing. And so I'm always gearing towards that $1.50 range. And that's actually part of one of my risk reduction strategies is you start out with an agreement, black and white, and you're very transparent about it. And it's included in the templates when you're making the job ad, which is, this position is temporary to permanent. That's your out. That's your back door. So you're only committing to a virtual assistant for 90 days. And after 90 days, you're going to assess whether or not this was a worthwhile endeavor. This was something that grew your business. This employee that you hired was somebody who you want to keep on. And if you do keep them on, then you agree to give them a raise and keep doing what you're doing. And that was my risk reduction strategy. And I calculated exactly how many hours and how many dollars. And I looked at it like an investment. At the time I hired a full-time VA, so 40 hours. So it works out to be like $400 a month or $300 a month. So I said, okay, at worst, I'm into this for $900. And if it doesn't work out, I could cut my losses and be done, But at the end of 90 days, I went from $2,500 a month in sales on FBA to $10,000 a month in sales on FBA. So, I was hooked right then and there. So, and that's kind of how I look at the ROI. So I think that kind of answers both of those fears, the affordability. And then I've evolved since then to really believe that you don't need to hire a full-time VA. You could hire a part-time, 20 hours a week, or so. So it makes it even more affordable from there.
Yeah. Now, what are the chances? I've heard people say, well, if you don't offer full-time, then they're probably not going to stick around because they really want full-time. Is that true? Or, how do you feel about that? Should you try and hire part-time, or is it really better for you to go hire full-time?
I think it kind of depends on the nature of the position. Most virtual assistants would definitely prefer a full-time gig, definitely. So if it's possible, then you should endeavor to offer full-time. Now, that being said, I have 7 or 8 virtual assistants, and 4 of them are full-time and the rest are not. And what that looks like in effect is, I have a social media coordinator, okay, who, by the way, is going to be doing some Pinterest marketing soon. But she is part-time, and what she does for me right now is we have a few Facebook communities, and she updates our editorial calendar. She schedules all the Facebook posts. It doesn't take her that long. There's no need to have a full-time person doing that for me in my business. Ditto for my bookkeeper. My bookkeeper only works an hour and a half every week. She just tidies up my books, runs the reports I need her to run. She shoots me an email every Tuesday with the bottom line, how we did last week. She wraps up the month for me. It takes her an hour and a half every week. Now, I do have several employees that are full-time. And so those would be the ones that are doing a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to the wholesale business. They're doing the research. A couple of them are engaged in uploading designs. I have 2 full-time designers that are, constantly coming up with designs for me. So those are full-time. So it kind of depends on the position, but it's not necessary in a lot of cases to have a full-time employee.
Okay. I can easily see hiring full-time just for Pinterest, because there's just so many different moving parts and pieces of that. And at this point, my strategy has been, just hire someone to just do nothing but make the pin images, because that is probably one of the most important piece to Pinterest marketing is the image itself. Because if that doesn't look really great, then it's a waste of time. People aren't going to click through the pin and go to whatever's on the other side of that pin, whether it be a product or website, wherever that you're trying to lead them to. And so the pin image itself has to be really, really good. And I mean, I'm not a designer, and I've been doing a lot of these pin images myself for quite a while, and it does take time to create that many of them. Here in the last few months, I've been creating 50 images for all of my clients. I'm doing their management marketing for them. I've been creating 50 for all of them, and then trying to keep up for myself too. And it's what's happened is I've neglected my own. I've neglected my own business because I'm working on everyone else's business. I'm working on all these other projects. So that's one of my first things that I'm doing right now, is trying to hire someone that will just do nothing but create pin images. And I think that that's an important piece of the puzzle. The other part of the puzzle for Pinterest marketing is, the scheduling and the keywording in the pin descriptions. And with that is a piece where, again, a lot of fear creeps up with me, because I understand and I know what needs to happen with the keywording and the SEO in order to get things to rank high. And in my head, it's that fear of, okay, if I hire someone in the Philippines, how good is their English? Are they going to have a good understanding of what I need to have done? Am I going to be able to even train them well? Can we communicate? And here's what I've noticed. And I put in an application, or sent out a job, I guess, is what I did. I sent out a job this past week, and to hire some VAs. And there's been close to 12 applicants already. And it's only been like 3 days. And what I advertised was just creating the pins. And it was remarkable to me to see in their applications, when they are writing back, how well their English is. I've just been stunned by this and blown away, because that was one of my biggest fears was, how good is the English? Are we going to be able to communicate well? How are we going to be able to work together? How can we do this? And I don't want to waste time going through VA after VA after VA. And you got to get rid of one, try and find another one. And just, you hear these stories where it can be a problem over time. But that was one of my fears, was how good is their English? Are we going to be able to communicate? And then if I'm asking them to do any kind of writing whatsoever, that's really got to be good, excellent writing. And they've got to understand the concept of keywords and a little bit of search of SEO, because Pinterest is a search engine. So I've been quite surprised by how well the communication is so far, and the English speaking skills. I've been communicating with one in particular, and her English and grammar is better than most Americans.
Right.
I looked at what she wrote and I was just shocked. I mean, she used the word whatnot in a sentence, and it was grammatically correct and it was done really well. And I thought, wow, just scroll the Facebook feed and what you read there is nothing in comparison to what she wrote to me. And I was so surprised by that. So what has your feeling been on the communication and English speaking skills?
It's kind of a mixed bag. You get some that are just awful with the English language. It depends on where they come from in the Philippines and whether or not they speak it every day. Tagalog is the national language of the Philippines, but most of them speak English in some capacity. What I always look for, depending on, I have a writer on my team who does all my keywording and writing for my descriptions, titles, bullets. And when I was looking for her and filling her position, what I wanted was someone who spoke English colloquially. In other words, they didn't just understand the words, but they also understood the context and they understood the slang and they understood, so this would be somebody who was heavily steeped in kind of American culture, typically somebody who, maybe watches a hell of a lot of YouTube videos or is really into something that you can only find in the States. And so that's what I was looking for. And the test for that is really a face-to-face conversation. And it'll let you know right away how well they do as far as understanding context. There's just when you speak to a lot of people from the Philippines, you start to see how certain English words don't translate well for some of them. One of my virtual assistants always used to say that she was going to cope up instead of catch up, COPE, cope up. And I didn't know if that was like a phrase there, but it definitely is not something that I've ever heard here. So, and then when you're interviewing them, one of the fun things I like to do, and I share it in the course, is there's these little kind of things that you could do to filter them out. So in one of my job advertisements, I put a question in there, and it was just, if you're interested in this position, write back with your resume and let me know which Ninja Turtle is your favorite, right? So it's just this silly little question, but it tells you so much, right? If first of all, it was a research position. I would get some that would write back and they would give me like a 2-paragraph answer on their favorite Ninja Turtle, like when they first appeared in the series, what their weapon was, what color, just some backstory on them. So these were people that really were into the research phase of it. They were demonstrating their research ability. Some of them responded with kind of just like their favorite stories, childhood stories or whatever from the Ninja Turtles. And some responded with, here's my resume. I don't know who the Ninja Turtles are. Let me know if I have the job, and so you could just like drag those right into the trash bin on your email provider. And so those kinds of things are very revealing, especially, with the language barrier. So I find that helpful.
Yeah, I think it's a good tip to communicate through Skype or Zoom face-to-face, because I think it's probably pretty easy to spend a lot of time trying to craft out your wording response back through email and do it, making sure that it's good English and grammatically correct, but that may not be how they actually speak. So there's ways that you can kind of cover that up and show your best foot forward, but that's not truly how you communicate on a day-to-day basis. And so you wouldn't want to hire someone that appeared as though they could communicate well. Turns out you're having a struggle. You're having a struggle trying to communicate back and forth, and you're finding, especially if you're having them do any kind of writing for you, that it's taken way too long because they're having to, look it up in a textbook basically and to try and figure it out. It's taking too long because they aren't immersed in it enough on day-to-day living to be able to communicate well to people. And so I think I agree with that that face-to-face communication, I think, is going to be very, very important. And I wouldn't mind doing it on a regular basis, to be honest with you. with the VA. So even after you do hire them, I think it would be important to periodically have everybody join in on a call or have different groups depending on what team you're trying to build. If you have different areas of your business and have different teams, you put those teams on a call and you communicate, you talk about it, about what's going on, and kind of listen on their end, what's happening, and be able to, give some direction and guidance. Or maybe there's a problem that needs to be solved and they're not, sure how to communicate that with you. I think that would be important to have on an ongoing basis where you check in, and I think we can check in using software where we could chat back and forth with everybody on a team. I think that's great on a daily basis, but I think it would be important to check in face to face, and be able to talk and communicate one-on-one with everyone on your team so that they see, who you are and you're able to see who they are. And it makes all the difference in the world when you have that face-to-face connection and contact. So I think that's really, really important. So what areas are you outsourcing in your business with your VAs? Do you have different teams set up for each part of your business, or do they all work together? How have you organized your VAs at this point?
Well, they all tend to actually work together. So by far the most labor intensive part of the business is the print on demand part of it, because it requires designs. So I have two full-time designers, and in order, like a factory that has excess capacity, if you do merch by Amazon, particularly, you have like these peaks and valleys. You max out your tier, and then you got to sit there and wait. Well, I don't want to, lay off essentially a good designer. So what I do is I also produce designs for other people, so I do that. So my designers are engaged in those kinds of activities: Etsy, merch by Amazon, Redbubble, Graphic Rhythm Design, which is the design service. So they do that. And then I have a virtual assistant who basically handles the whole wholesale side of the business herself. And this is what's really cool. She spends 40 hours a week just finding new products. And that was really a huge leverage point for me. So that's all she does 40 hours a week is she finds new wholesale accounts and she fills out applications. I have a writer who she writes all of the descriptions for merch by Amazon and for Etsy. And what I did at the beginning of this month, she was part-time and I just brought her on full-time. And I basically put her in charge of Etsy. I said, here's our goals, here's the tools, go learn how to make Etsy make money. And off she went. And that was just kind of that was just me working with her and understanding what her strengths were and what her weaknesses are, and learning that I could trust her to do that. So now she's basically spearheading Etsy. So she parses out work to the designers. So she'll actually do the research, the niche research on designs, and she'll figure out what keywords we're going to target, which niches we're going to enter. And she does it for both Etsy and Amazon. And then we use Airtable to collaborate as a team. So she creates Airtable cards, and the designers, I assign the designers. So then the designers create the design. And then when she goes to put it on Etsy, she parses off mock-ups. So she basically submits requisitions for mock-ups from the designers. So the designers make the mock-ups. And then the designers are also going to be doing the Pinterest images. So she'll be actually probably spearheading that, requisitioning Pinterest images from the designers. And then I have a social media coordinator, and she does the uploading into Amazon, and she's going to be doing the uploading into Redbubble when we start that in earnest. And then now she's also going to be doing the Pinterest as well. So they all kind of work together. And then starting in the new year, I'm bringing back an employee who had to take some time off, but I'm bringing her back full time to do customer service and client engagement for the wholesale side of the business. And so, I've got people doing all kinds of stuff, And what we do is we actually have a team meeting every Thursday at 9 p.m. my time. I'm on Eastern Standard, so it's about 10 a.m. Friday morning in the Philippines, and we have a team meeting where I basically go down the list of what I'm looking to accomplish in the next few weeks, kind of like short range goals, how everybody's going to play a part in that. We celebrate our wins. I talk about our sales numbers. I talk about any wins or losses. I celebrate their individual achievements. If some of the designers made a really awesome design, or a client was really happy with a design, I celebrate them publicly. And if we open a wholesale account, I let the girls who take care of wholesale know that. So, and then this is a nice working environment. It's pretty cool. My days are spent basically focusing on the most important parts of my business that only I can do. And even those, like the client management part, which is labor intensive, like it's dealing with clients. It requires a lot of nuance. I was convinced I could not outsource that, but in January I'm outsourcing it, and so that's going to happen, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that's what I feel too. As I start thinking about it, like I should probably hire help, and then I think, well, but what would they do? How would I be able to train them what I know to do? And then I think, well, wouldn't it just be easier for me to do it? I just circle right back to it of, well, why don't I just do it? I don't want to. Mm-hmm. I don't want to take the time to do that, or take the risk of thinking that I'm not going to be able to train them to do it well, or be able to teach them to do it well, or kind of the fear of that. So when you are having the VAs do writing for you, for your, but whether it be Merch by Amazon, or if you're creating new listings in Amazon for your FBA stuff, do you give them pointers, tips? Do you have a template that they use, or do you just tell them, go figure it out?
Yes, all of that. And in the course, I teach strategic leadership, which it's a program that basically teaches you, the business owner, how to adapt your leadership style to where your employee is, and not who they are as a person, but where they are in a task. So my ace, the one I was just describing, her name is Carol, who does all the writing for me. I don't give her any coaching anymore when it comes to writing. And if I tried to coach her, she'd probably get pretty pissed off at me, like, stay out of my business. I'm better than you at this, Right. But now when it comes to entering Etsy, she's back to zero on that. And she needs me there. She needs my hand-holding. She needs me to check in on her. She needs my encouragement and my support. So now I have to adjust my management style to match where she is when it comes to Etsy. And so when an employee is starting out, I really do counsel constant communication. Every morning I wake up, and now it's nighttime in the Philippines. So every morning I wake up, I review their work from the day before. I actually record a video of me critiquing their work, lavishing them with praise. Okay. And then I send that off to them. And then I keep doing that until the questions start to diminish, and they really kind of get their confidence, and they get, and they're assured that they're doing a good job, and they're assured that they know what they're doing. And then they start to enter phases 2 and 3 of strategic leadership, where either they need more support or they need more training, and the goal is to get them to phase 4, which is they don't need you. They just, you're more of a counselor rather than, a coach. You're there to guide them when they come off the tracks a little bit. So that's one strategy. I also make training videos. So before my virtual assistant ever starts, we have all the training videos done. We have standard operating procedures done. It's a very systematic approach. When Carol started on Etsy, the very first thing I did was me and her got on a live call, and I click record. Every time I'm training someone live, we record it, and then it goes in a folder and it gets labeled. I actually have like an intranet, like a little online portal that all of my virtual assistants have access to, with all the training videos in there. So we record every training session so that they can reference back to it. But directly after that call, I had Carol rewatch the video that we just recorded and write her own standard operating procedure. And in her particular case, she didn't know how to write a standard operating procedure. She'd never done it before. And I said, okay, Alyssa knows how to do it. Alyssa is one of my other virtual assistants. Go to her. So Alyssa trained Carol how to write a standard operating procedure for the Etsy uploading. So it's this cool system that all works together, and you are reinforcing. So Alyssa feels great because she knew how to do this thing, and she taught Carol how to do this thing. And Carol feels great because she's writing the standard operating procedure for this little part of the business that now is all hers and she owns. I feel good because I could be assured that she knows what she's doing. And so it really is it's this system that works together to all drive towards the same goal of having happy, confident, capable employees who are doing, what you need them to do to grow your business.
So if you were to compare this to your experience in a traditional job where you are hiring employees and training them, and then compare it to the experience of hiring virtual employees, I don't know if you call them virtual, because it just sounds strange to me, because it's real people. It's
Yep.
not as though they're people or a robot. It's real people.
Mm-hmm.
But they just are at remote access. They don't have to be physically present in order to get the work done and do the job. In your comparison, do you think that it's very, very similar in how you were training an employee on a traditional job, how to do their job, day-to-day tasks, what to do, your team meetings, all of that? Do you think it's very, very similar to how you're approaching it now, which is very different approach, that everything is now where we're all working remotely, but we all have a common goal. We have common interests.
I would say it is way, way easier than hiring somebody in the, and there's a few reasons. Just from the hiring perspective, you're able to really leverage the fact that they're outsourced from the Philippines, which is great. You basically, for almost all the positions, unless I'm hiring somebody that requires, I basically categorize them in two categories. There's entry level, and then there's professionals, right? So my professionals are my graphic designers and my bookkeepers, right? I expect them to come to me with everything they need to know to be successful in the business. I'm just teaching them my system. And then there's entry level employees. They have no idea what they're getting into. And so I'm training them how to do the job. I'm teaching them and giving them the skills on how to do the job, and also teaching them my systems. So the ability to find an entry-level employee that's of an exceptional quality is amazing. And it's wonderful. The other thing is when you're hiring from the Philippines or remotely, you can ask things and do things that you can't really do if you're hiring a domestic employee. And, this is not to be interpreted as use this for evil purposes, because obviously, there's no law saying that you can't discriminate, but you shouldn't. But you can use it, for instance, to discuss their family. In the United States, you can't ask an employee if they're married. That's illegal. If you're hiring somebody remotely, you can ask them if they're married or if they have kids, and you can use it as a place in the interview to kind of develop a rapport and, chat with them. When I hired Alyssa, part of her, 10 minutes of our interview was us discussing 3-year-olds, because I had a 3-year-old daughter and she has a 3-year-old daughter, so that's kind of cool. But also you can leverage technology. So Online Jobs has the option of them doing a IQ test. So I do not consider any candidates that haven't done that IQ test, and I don't hire any candidates with an IQ of less than 110, that's really what you want. You want somebody who's going to learn rapidly, and that's what an IQ is. It's somebody who can learn rapidly, or that's what it determines is your ability to learn quickly. So that's one thing that's awesome. And then also working as a team. You just in the field, you can't record a video of you doing the job and then give it to them to learn from. You have to be there, and you have to be constantly present for that kind of training. So it's infinitely easier in the digital space for a lot of reasons.
That's good because, that was one reason why I don't think I would ever, want to do a brick and mortar type business because of so many intricate details, so many things, the difficulty of hiring, the difficulty of training. There's so much involved with that. A lot of overhead expenses, and having an online business really works well because you get rid of a lot of the overhead, a lot of the risk. A lot of it can be done at much less money and much less time, to be honest with you, in many ways. And so working with people, that's the only way that you can grow your business, and being able to do it well. And what I really liked about what you said was that when you are in the interview process, talking face to face, doing a video chat with a potential person that you want to hire, is that you're able to talk on a personal level. You're able to talk about things that you have in common, family life. What you're really doing is you're developing that relationship immediately before you even hire them, before you even start working with them further. And I think that they will remember that, and they will be excited. Once you say, hey, I want you to join the team, I bet they're going to be thrilled, just thrilled, because they already feel like they're a part of your family in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what you're saying is you're trying to do more than just build a team. You have a whole family. Yep. You've got a whole family of people that you're working with. Yep. So yeah, and that's how you treat them, as we're working together. We're a team, but we're also a family. We're going to help each other. We're going to support each other. We're going to encourage each other. We're going to train each other. We're going to do whatever we can so that we can be a real team. And when I think of family, I think of a family unit as a team, really, as everyone needs to come together and let's work towards a common goal, and let's help each other out. We're going to support and encourage each other, all of that. So I think a family is the same way, as we're a team. We're a team, and we're going to try and work together. So I don't think it would be any less of a decision to think of people that you're hiring differently. I mean, you would want to think of them as a family too, and as a team as well, and think of it in the same way. So I really like the fact that you're trying to build that relationship with each person before you even hire them. I think that's great. And down the road, if you need to hire another person, maybe that same person might apply. If they could figure out that I don't know if they could tell who it is that's posting the job or not, but they may see who that is and remember that, say, hey, I want to apply for that. Maybe I'll be able to get this job with this person. And it might be a role that's a little bit better fit for them. I think you've already answered this, but do you have VAs that do multiple different jobs for you, or do you just like to assign one specific job to each VA, and that's just, they're just in charge of that and that's it? So for example, maybe I'd want someone to create Pinterest pins, but yet at the same time, I want them to upload all of my designs into Redbubble and take care of all of that at the same time. Is that a smart thing to do, or would it be better to have someone completely separate and they're just the Redbubble person and they just take care of that?
That's a smart thing to do, and you just kind of have to approach it correctly. So I don't like to give them two things to learn how to do at once. So I would give them the Pinterest one, and let them develop that, let them get good at it. And then once they've done that, they'll get naturally faster at it. And as they get naturally faster at it, you'll find that they start fishing around for things to do, because they want their time, and so that's where it's crucial for you as a manager to be like paying attention here. If you're not really sure how they spent 10 of their hours last week, and it's human. It's not malicious. You just say, hey, you ready to learn something new? Sure am, and then you train them into the next thing.
Yeah. And then that now is the time to give them another task. Maybe they're ready to handle it because they've mastered one thing really well. Now we can work on another thing that they can start working towards and mastering. So that's a smart thing. We tend to have trouble doing that ourselves. We start chasing shiny objects, and it's hard to master one thing before you add in another thing. So in this case, you would have to be the person in charge to help your team member focus. So that's what's hard in this business, is the focus. And you're going to have to help them to focus so that they could master whatever it is that you're assigning them to do, just one task, one job, and just really master that well so that it becomes automatic. They don't have to spend as much time at it. It becomes secondary. Then that frees up their mind to be able to add on something else and be able to learn something else, because really we can only take so many learning curves at a time. And we've got to, go through a learning curve, master it well, and then we're ready to handle the next learning curve. And so you would have to remember that and treat your team in the same way. Don't expect them to try to take on 6 learning curves or 6 different tasks at once and overwhelm them. They're probably going to say, I'm done,
Yep.
I'm done. And we tend to do that to ourselves. And you have to remember that we're humans. We shouldn't be doing that to ourselves because we just can't handle it. And why should we expect anyone else to either? So that's probably a key area to remember when you are trying to bring on a team member, is what is your expectations, and are they reasonable? Are they reasonable expectations?
And it's also our job as managers, as leaders, and as business owners to set the agenda. So whenever I give an employee more than one thing to do, the very first thing I'm doing is I'm prioritizing the 2 things. So if Alyssa, when I transitioned Alyssa from not just researching new wholesale clients but also filling out applications, I said to her, so now your new priority list is, if there are applications to fill out, those always get filled out first. Then you will always go back to doing wholesale research, And so that at a point in time, that job also used to encompass price evaluation. So, and it was fill out applications. Then your next priority is to evaluate price lists. And then your last priority is to find new wholesale accounts, And so that's, the agenda that you set, and, it resonates in your business. So then you're kind of prioritizing the most important things for them.
Mm-hmm. Making sure that they stay busy, that they have enough work to do. And I think that's probably another downfall that I've heard, is that their VAs are saying, hey, what else do you have for us to do? And you don't have enough for them to do. You don't have enough planned out for them to do. So that is one thing that I'm really interested in your course, and I'm going to put this up here so that everyone can see where they can go to get your course here. And that's one thing that is important, is you need to make sure that you do plan everything out ahead of time so that you have enough to keep them busy and going. And I think that's hard because we work on our business as much as we possibly can, and we're one person. And then you hire another person and they have 40 hours free. And maybe we just don't have 40 hours free per week to work on our business. Actually, most people don't, to be honest with you. They really don't have 40 hours to work on their business each week. They have a lot of other obligations and responsibilities. They're probably working other jobs too on top of that. And now suddenly you've got someone that has 40 hours. It's just hard for me to comprehend, man, I'm going to have to plan this out. They're going to get so much more done than what I could possibly do. And I really got to think ahead and plan it out and make sure that I'm giving them plenty of work to fill their 40 hours so that you can see your business growth and that they can get their hours in that they're looking for every single week so that they can feed their families. So I think that's something to think ahead, because I hear a lot of people say, well, my VAs are looking for something more to do and I don't know what else to give them. Mm-hmm. And I think, are you kidding me? There's a ton of stuff that you can give them to do. There's so many moving parts and pieces to this business that it's just endless, it seems, of all of the opportunity that is available. And what I'm finding is that I seem to get in the way of my own business the worst. I really do. I think I am my own worst enemy. And I'm kind of the cog in the wheel at this point. I'm the cog in the wheel. And what am I going to do?
Yep. One of the tasks when you're doing the wholesale strategy that I use is you have to basically it's doing the research, finding the wholesalers, and then sending them an email, basically saying, can I open up a wholesale account? And I wasn't doing it. Like, that was my job. My job was to send the emails, and they were supposed to go out every Monday, and I would forget or whatever. I didn't feel like it, or I put it off, or I didn't want to deal with it, or whatever it might be. And once I realized that I was getting in the way of my own business, I went to my virtual assistant. I said, hey, congratulations. You have access to this now. Every Monday at 9 a.m., I want you to send emails to every single person on the list, that we're populating. And from then on, it was awesome. Every Monday, the emails drop, 150 emails on a Monday. And then my job is to respond to all the emails that come back and move them in the right categories before Friday, because on Monday, she's going to send them another email if I don't move them off the list. So it actually motivated me. Her taking over that task motivated me. That was probably one of the more explosive things I've done, aside from actually hiring a virtual assistant, is realizing when I'm in the way of my own business and outsourcing it to somebody else. Because there's somebody else out there that likes to do what you hate doing. Mm-hmm. When I wrote a job advertisement for a bookkeeper, my headline for the ad was, I forget exactly, but it was something like, does looking at Excel spreadsheets get you excited? Or does figuring out accounting problems really just like the reason you get out of bed? And that's what I was looking for. I was looking for somebody that got really excited about accounting. Like, who gets excited? Not me. Like, I neglected my books for like 8 months. When she came on board, she was like, I'm going to need a raise. But, it was really cool, when I realized that I was getting in the way of myself. And now I'm somebody she just has to deal with now. And now I'm a problem that she has to handle, my bookkeeper, because I'm always like, shouldn't this be in this category? And she's like, shut up, just step away from the books.
Yeah.
So, good relationship you develop.
Yeah, it's hard because we can't do it all, and we're not good at everything. It's impossible for us to be good at everything. So it is smart to leverage not only other people's time, but their knowledge, really, their skills, their skill sets, and be able to leverage that and use that so that you're working together, and you're partnering, in a sense, is what you're doing. So I think that's pretty important, to think about it from that perspective. And it's hard because I don't know. I guess it's taken me way longer to get to this point than what it should have, to be honest with you. I should have done this probably 2 years ago, but I don't know. I think it's part of, just that attitude of that pride, that attitude of, no, I've got to just keep working hard and doing it myself, and I'll be able to just bust through this. And then things, start to slip and fall apart. Emergencies come up, things that you've got to handle. And then business starts to slide, and you just go in too many directions. And it's really, really hard to keep your focus and to keep your growth on the business if it depends on one person, because you're a human being. You're a human being. You really can't do it all. And things are going to come up. Emergencies are going to happen. Things will happen to where you're going to have to step out of the business for a while. And you don't want to make it to where things are going to fall apart if you do have to step out. The wheel is still going to keep turning and moving, and everything is going to be functioning flawlessly if you are able to step away from it. And that's my goal, is to be able to build it to a point where I could step out of it and things aren't going to fall apart. It's going to be just fine. And in my mind, I think for some reason that everything's going to fall apart if I step away. I don't know. It's a pride issue or something. And I was reading somewhere about Midwesterners. I'm in the Midwest. And, us Midwesterners, we're all about this hard work ethic. Just hard work ethic. We work long hours and just pull up your bootstraps and do it. Just work hard, do it. But it's not always the answer or the solution. It's not always. That's really, really tough for me to get to a point where I realize that. And kind of, it's your growing pains is what you're going through in the business. And knowing that hard work isn't necessarily going to produce more results or any better results. And you putting more of your time on it isn't necessarily going to give you better results in the long term either, because you might burn out. You might burn out and have to kind of take a step back for a little bit. It might start affecting your health because you're working too long of hours, too hard, too much, expecting way too much out of yourself because you're only one person. And so that's, I'm saying this to preach to myself. So to keep all of this in mind of why at some point we do have to step aside and we need to hire some help to come in, and that there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's a smart thing to do with that. So you've got your course here. Any highlights about your course that you want to talk about or cover? It's really pretty good. I was really impressed with it. You've got everything laid out. It's organized very, very well. I love the color coding. That was great. That's like, I could tell that you're a very, very organized person, and that does you well in trying to manage your overall business, where things are color coded and everything is basically in its place, and it's just the system that runs. And so you created the course in the same way. It's probably how you treat your own business, where it's a system that you approach and you just work the system, and that's all you do.
Yeah, that's it. And the course, predominantly is about how to hire a virtual assistant, and so there's 3 modules, and it goes through, the first one is what I call decorating the nursery. And, I call it that because before you bring baby home, you don't bring baby home and then set up the crib, right? You set up the crib first. So that's the way I think of a virtual assistant. Before you hire a virtual assistant, you want to make sure that they're prepared to be successful before they start. So that first module goes over how to create training materials, how to even figure out what to train your virtual assistant on, how to de-risk hiring a virtual assistant. So the next 2 modules talk about Filipino culture and things you need to know to be successful there, how to communicate with a virtual assistant, software I use. There's even a module in there about different software systems that I use. And so for those of us that are a little technologically challenged, it might be helpful to learn about how to use Hangouts or how to use Screencastify or these different pieces of software I use. And then the last module is actually hiring a VA. Like, okay, so how do we write a job advertisement? What interview questions are the most important? When should I ask those interview questions? What do I say during a live job interview? But more than just a virtual assistant, like how to hire a virtual assistant course, it's also about how to be the kind of manager and the kind of leader that's going to get the most out of their employees. So there's a couple of cool bonuses in there. Strategic leadership is one. And I also included recordings, like live recordings where I interviewed and hired a virtual assistant. So the live recordings are in there of that process, and that's in there as a bonus. But then but in addition to those things, it's also a course that teaches you how to systematize your business. So how to take a look at your business, decide what systems need to be in place, where to start when it comes to hiring a virtual assistant. By the way, if anybody in the audience is wondering where they are supposed to start, what the first thing they should outsource is, my advice is outsource the thing that's closest to the money. Whatever makes the money in your business, that's the first thing you should outsource, because that's going to be the most profitable ROI. Hiring a bookkeeper is wonderful, but it's not like a big return on investment. It's just something that needs to be done. Hiring somebody to find bloggers to guest blog for, finding somebody to create designs, find somebody to research online arbitrage or wholesale like I do. Those are the things that produce the money. So that link that you shared there will actually give you those bonuses for free that I talked about. So if anybody's watching, wow, go ahead and click those bonuses, come free with that link. And so that's pretty much the course in a nutshell. It gives you everything you need to be successful. I have a VA troubleshooting guide in there, because things do sometimes go sideways. Help, my virtual assistant hasn't responded to any of my messages in 48 hours. What do I do? The answer to that's in there. So it's basically built to give you everything you need to hire the right employee. And that's another thing to point out, is that the virtual assistant market is crowded right now. Lots of people are going to the Philippines for VAs. The last few virtual assistants that I hired specifically told me that they turned down other offers to take mine. And I'm not offering a lot of money. They turned down those other offers because of how well I presented my company, how well I presented myself and this opportunity, how I developed that relationship in the interview process. So my strategies for doing that are all in there as well. So hiring a really good employee, the best candidate you can find for the best price you can, minimizing your risks and setting yourself up for success. That's all included. Everything that you need to be successful in this endeavor is included in that course. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. And you have to stay competitive too, so that they will want to work for you and help them to want to be there, to want to stick around. Do you find that they stick around for quite a long time, or do you have to constantly bring in new ones and retrain them and replace them? Do you have a high turnover rate, or do they stick around for a long time?
No, I have a very, very low turnover rate. I had to let an employee go recently. She was the first VA I ever hired. She built the business, like where the business is today. And I had to let her go just because of some issues. And like, it was a heartbreaking moment for her, and it was a heartbreaking moment for me. And it wasn't like she was dropping the ball. She just had other obligations that were getting in the way. Yeah. And she's actually coming back in January. Like we even parted ways in such a beneficial way that both of us feel perfectly comfortable with her coming back. And so she's going to do that. Now, there have been a couple of occasions where I've had to let go of VAs. In particular, I went on, I decided I was going to really like go all in on the merch by Amazon thing. So I went out and I just hired 5 designers. I was like,
just
hiring all the designers. And
you're stealing them all from everybody. No one else can have any designers because of you.
Right.
Is that your strategy?
Yeah. I didn't follow any of my own advice when it comes to hiring. I'm such an idiot. I didn't follow my advice. And so what I wound up with was this mixed bag. I had some of these designers that were absolutely awful, and because I didn't follow my own advice, I rushed the process. I didn't take the time to do it right. I wound up with some designers that were copying other people's designs, stealing design elements. Yeah. And because I had done such a good job hiring my original designer, I made him the project manager. So he was overseeing the other designers, right? And he was the one that was looking out for me. He was covering my back. He'd say, "Hey, Ian, just so you know, this designer just figured out how to scrub the watermark off the Shutterstock image that they stole." I'm like, "Well, thanks, man. You just saved me, a lawsuit or, at the very minimum, getting my design taken down and my merch by Amazon account shut down." So some great decisions that I made protected me from the bad decisions that I made. So that was good. But yeah, I had to, unfortunately, let some people go. But very low turnover. All of my employees are super happy. So it's been good.
Yeah. And there's another link here that I'm going to show. I think I was trying to understand what this is. I think is this a mini course?
Yeah,
you're offering, then it's for free, where people can just go in and kind of get their feet wet a little bit to understand, what this is all about before they take the big plunge.
Yep. So that's growth levers. And, I'm very, very big on this idea of execution. Executing is more important than knowing, especially if you already know. If you already know what to do and you're just not doing it, then you have an execution problem. So Growth Levers talks about the 3 most important levers that you could pull from an execution standpoint, including outsourcing. It also includes focusing on your business, how to kind of avoid shiny object syndrome. And then the last growth lever, I'm going to embarrass myself here by not remembering it because that's the way things go. But it's about executing the things and doing the things that you need to do. So that's what that is. So if anybody wants to sign up, they can definitely check it out. Get a lot of the same things that we talked about here from the perspective of outsourcing. And that's all in there for you.
Awesome. Well, I think what we'll do is wrap it up for now. For those that are in the Pinterest for e-commerce course in the Facebook group, Ian is in there, and you can certainly ask questions. We're going to be talking probably about how do we use this to hire VAs for the Pinterest marketing side, because no one has time to add that into the business, but yet it's a huge opportunity that you might be missing out on if you're not getting your products in front of the people on Pinterest. So it's just a matter of how do we incorporate that in? How do we think through the process? How do we do the step-by-step of trying to hire a VA that can help you in your Pinterest marketing? So for those that are in the Pinterest for e-commerce course with Traffic Power, we can continue the conversation in there for a while if you want. Otherwise, you could always drop questions at any time. And if there's people who still need more information, we could do another live where we could answer more people's questions and be able to be more helpful there. But I think it's awesome. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing all of this. Thank you for the course. That's awesome. It's something that's definitely needed. I need it. I know that everyone else out there needs it too. And my next step is trying to get my first VA hired and then go from there. And hopefully, in a year, I'll be able to build a small team where everything is running a lot smoother than what it is now, and be able to sleep well at night.
Awesome.
That's the goal. So thanks so much for being here.
You're welcome.
And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we'll talk again later.
All right.
All right.